In the early 1980s, America was a tapestry of quiet neighborhoods, deep forests, and long, winding highways. The sun would rise over Washington state, casting a warm glow across the landscape. But beneath this serene surface, a hidden danger was silently growing. A shadow loomed, waiting to disrupt the peace and safety that so many took for granted. Little did the residents know, their world was about to be shattered by an unseen menace. Gary Ridgway, a man who would come to be known as the Green River Killer, blended seamlessly into this ordinary backdrop. He appeared unremarkable, a quiet figure in a bustling society. But beneath that facade lay a darkness that would haunt countless families. Raised in a troubled home, Ridgway's childhood was marked by a strict, often abusive upbringing. His mother's harsh demeanor and controlling nature left scars that he would carry into adulthood. Yet, he developed a facade of normalcy, embodying the very definition of a seemingly average man. As the investigation into the missing women began, the first bodies were discovered near the banks of the Green River. It was 1982, and investigators were met with confusion and dread. The sight of those bodies, discarded like trash, sent shockwaves through the community. Families were gripped by fear and heartbreak, grappling with the horrifying reality that a predator lurked among them. The sense of urgency was palpable. There was a desperate need to understand, to connect the dots, and to bring justice for the lives lost. With each passing day, the list of missing women grew longer. The Seattle area was becoming a graveyard for dreams and futures, and families were left searching for answers. The media caught wind of the growing panic, and headlines blared warnings to women, urging them not to walk alone. The fear was tangible. Investigators found themselves in a whirlwind of frustration, trying to piece together a puzzle that seemed impossible to solve. Evidence was scarce, and the realization that they were dealing with a serial killer began to settle in. Amidst this chaos, Ridgway continued to live his life. He worked at a truck painting company, where he was known as the quiet, helpful guy who lived next door. Neighbors described him as normal, never suspecting that he was leading a double life. He married multiple times, maintaining relationships that appeared stable on the surface. Yet, behind closed doors, his darkness festered, hidden beneath layers of everyday normalcy. As the investigation intensified in the mid-1980s, a task force was created to hunt down the Green River Killer. Investigators fielded hundreds of tips, poring over interviews and leads that often led nowhere. The emotional exhaustion began to take its toll. Families attended press briefings, their faces etched with hope and despair, longing for news about their missing loved ones. Each day, the weight of the unsolved cases pressed down heavier on the community, while Ridgway remained elusive, evading capture as he continued his heinous acts. Years passed, and while the cases slowed down, they never fully ceased. Ridgway grew more careful, more controlled, as he shifted his strategies. New disappearances haunted the community, and families never stopped searching for their missing daughters, sisters, and friends. The emotional turmoil was immense. Each name represented a life unfulfilled, a future snuffed out too soon. Then, a breakthrough came in 2001. Advances in DNA technology allowed investigators to connect Ridgway to the crimes. The shock was palpable when they realized that the man they had been searching for was someone so ordinary, someone who had lived among them. During his interrogation, Ridgway's calm demeanor only added to the chilling atmosphere. He spoke with an unsettling ease, revealing the depths of his depravity. As investigators sat across from him, they were met with cold, emotionless explanations. "I chose the weakest," he admitted, as if discussing the weather. "They trusted me." Each name he recounted felt like a dagger to their hearts. The weight of hearing those names, the stories behind them, left an indelible mark on everyone in the room. The emotional toll was immense, a stark reminder of the lives lost and the families shattered. The trial in 2003 was a sobering affair. The courtroom was filled with the weeping families of the victims, each one holding on to memories too precious to let go. Ridgway, sitting there almost detached, avoided the death penalty by confessing to dozens of murders. The emotional impact statements from the loved ones echoed through the room, each voice filled with pain and longing. Ridgway's eyes revealed little, except for one fleeting moment when confronted with the reality of his actions, tears streaming down his face. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a fate that some felt was too lenient for the destruction he had wrought. But the legacy of Ridgway's crimes would extend far beyond his own life. The case changed America in profound ways, prompting better systems for handling missing persons, raising awareness about the vulnerabilities of women, and advancing forensic technologies. It drove home a deeper understanding of serial offender behavior, forcing society to confront the uncomfortable truths that lay beneath the surface. In the aftermath, communities began to heal, creating memorials to honor the victims. These women, once lost in the shadows, were remembered for their hopes and dreams. Each one had a story, a life that deserved recognition and respect. Families worked tirelessly to keep their memories alive, reminding the world that they were more than just statistics. As we reflect on the untold story of Gary Ridgway, we are left with a somber reminder of the unseen dangers that can lurk in the most familiar places. The lives lost are a testament to the importance of awareness, empathy, and justice. Each life extinguished is a call to action for society to protect the vulnerable, to listen to the whispers of those who are marginalized, and to strive for a world where such tragedies never occur again. In the quiet moments, we must remember the names and faces of the victims, honoring their legacies with compassion. As we conclude this exploration, let us hold close the memories of those who were taken too soon. Their stories deserve to be told, their lives celebrated, and their spirits never forgotten. In the early 1980s, America presented itself as a picturesque landscape, quaint neighborhoods lined with white picket fences, deep forests stretching across the horizon, and long, winding highways that seemed to beckon for a journey. This was a time when families enjoyed weekend picnics. Kids rode their bikes freely, and the evenings were filled with the sound of laughter and warmth. But beneath this comforting facade, an unsettling reality lurked, hidden in the shadows of the towering trees. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the landscape, a sense of foreboding began to creep in. Washington State, known for its stunning wilderness, was also home to a growing danger that would soon send shivers down the spine of its residents. It was a danger that crept silently, like a whisper carried by the wind, waiting for the right moment to disrupt the peace that seemed almost too perfect. Here, in the dense forests and quiet suburbs, a shadow was forming, one that would forever alter the lives of those who called this place home. Picture the scene: a tranquil neighborhood, the kind where neighbors greeted each other with friendly waves and shared stories over backyard fences. But in the stillness of that warmth, something sinister was brewing. Women began to vanish. Each disappearance sent shockwaves through the community. Families were left reeling, their hearts heavy with worry, as they searched for answers in every corner of their world. Who was taking these women? What was happening in their once safe community? The questions hung in the air, heavy and unanswered. The first signs of horror emerged in 1982 when bodies began to be discovered near the Green River, a once peaceful waterway that now became tainted with tragedy. Investigators arrived at the scene, their faces etched with confusion and urgency. It was a shocking revelation for the community, a stark contrast to the idyllic life they believed they were living. With each body found, the realization sank in. There was a serial killer at work, and the fear that gripped the residents tightened its hold. The atmosphere thickened with dread. Police officers, usually a comforting presence, now exuded a sense of urgency. They pored over evidence, piecing together a horrifying puzzle. While families clung to hope, praying for the safe return of their loved ones, the media caught wind of the growing crises, and headlines warned women to be vigilant, to avoid walking alone. The quiet neighborhoods transformed into places of anxiety, where shadows seemed to lengthen, and every rustle in the bushes sparked fear. As the mystery deepened, the community's sense of safety crumbled. Investigators reported increasing numbers of missing women, each case more heartbreaking than the last. Families, desperate and distraught, conducted their own searches, plastering flyers with the faces of their loved ones across town. The sense of urgency grew. Time was not on their side. Could they find these women before it was too late? Among the chaos, one man continued to lead a life that seemed entirely normal. Gary Ridgway was an unremarkable figure, a quiet man who blended seamlessly into the fabric of his. He worked at a truck painting company, and neighbors described him as helpful and friendly. To them, he was just another face in the crowd, someone they would never suspect of harboring dark secrets. Yet beneath this unassuming exterior lay a chilling reality, one that would soon be revealed. Ridgway's ability to live a double life added to the eerie atmosphere. He married multiple times, presenting himself as a devoted husband while simultaneously engaging in horrific acts of violence. It was as if he wore a mask, carefully crafted to hide the darkness that thrived just beneath the surface. He was a man who could walk among his neighbors, share a laugh, and then slip into the shadows without a second thought. As the investigation intensified in the mid-1980s, hope waned. A task force was created to track down the so-called Green River Killer. This was a time of emotional exhaustion for investigators, who faced countless leads and an overwhelming number of tips. Families gathered at press briefings, each one a desperate plea for answers, hoping to catch a glimpse of hope amidst overwhelming despair. Yet Ridgway remained a ghost, eluding capture as he continued his chilling rampage. Years passed, but the mystery persisted. The community remained haunted by the specter of violence, even as Ridgway grew more careful and calculated. New disappearances continued to plague the area, each one a stark reminder that the danger was still lurking behind the trees. Families who had lost loved ones refused to give up. They searched tirelessly, their hearts aching for closure, their lives forever altered by the absence of those they loved. As the years slipped by, advancements in technology offered a glimmer of hope. In the early 2000s, DNA science began to evolve, providing tools that could crack cases long thought unsolvable. When police finally matched Ridgway's DNA to the evidence collected at crime scenes, shockwaves rippled through the investigative community. The killer was someone they had never expected, a man who appeared so ordinary and unremarkable. It was a chilling revelation that sent a wave of both relief and horror through the team that had spent years chasing shadows. During his interrogation, Ridgway's demeanor was unnervingly calm. He spoke of his crimes with an unsettling detachment, as if recounting mundane events from an ordinary day. "I chose the weakest," he remarked, revealing the chilling logic behind his actions. Each name he confessed to was like a dagger to the hearts of the investigators, who listened in disbelief as he recounted the lives he had taken. The emotional weight of hearing each victim's name hung in the air, a haunting reminder of the lives cut tragically short. The trial in 2003 was a moment marked by profound sorrow. The courtroom was filled with weeping families, each one carrying the unbearable burden of loss. Ridgway, in stark contrast, sat largely expressionless, a chilling figure in a sea of grief. He avoided the death penalty by confessing to the killings, a calculated move that left many feeling robbed of justice. Yet, in a rare moment of vulnerability, tears welled in his eyes when confronted with the pain he had caused. It was a fleeting glimpse of emotion, but it felt almost meaningless against the backdrop of the heartache he had inflicted. In the aftermath of the trial, the legacy of Ridgway's actions cast a long shadow over America. This case became a pivotal moment in the discussion around missing persons, particularly for vulnerable women. It prompted changes in law enforcement procedures, better systems for tracking missing individuals, and heightened awareness of the dangers faced by those living on the margins of society. Communities began to rally around the memories of the victims, organizing memorials and campaigns to ensure their stories were not forgotten. It's vital to remember that behind the statistics and headlines were real people, women with dreams, hopes, and futures snuffed out far too soon. Each victim had a story, a life that was full of promise and potential. They were daughters, sisters, and friends. Their absence left a void that could never be filled, and the community mourned their loss deeply. As we reflect on this haunting chapter in history, we're reminded of the unseen dangers that can lurk just beneath the surface of our lives. The story of Gary Ridgway is not just one of horror. It serves as a stark reminder to remain vigilant, to foster empathy for those who may be vulnerable, and to stand against the shadows that threaten our communities. The story of Gary Ridgway is not just one of horror. It serves as a stark reminder to remain vigilant, to foster empathy for those who may be vulnerable, and to stand against the shadows that threaten our communities. In honoring the lives lost, we create a legacy of awareness, a commitment to justice, and a promise to always seek the truth. The narrative of the Green River Killer is one that will linger in our collective consciousness. It's a story of darkness, but it is also a testament to the resilience of those who seek justice. May we carry these lessons forward, ensuring that every life lost is remembered, and that we remain ever watchful against the shadows that might once again threaten our peace. In the quiet corners of Washington State, a man was growing up in an environment that would shape him in ways no one could foresee. Gary Ridgway was born in 1949, the second of 3 sons in a family that struggled to maintain harmony. His childhood was marked not by chaos, but by a subtle undercurrent of dysfunction. Ridgway's mother, a domineering figure, often clashed with his father, who was described as passive and withdrawn. This unremarkable upbringing was steeped in conflict, setting the stage for a complex duality that would define his life. From the outside, Ridgway appeared to be just another face in the crowd. He was an average-looking boy with a mop of dark hair and an innocent smile. He played with his brothers, attended school, and immersed himself in the simple pleasures of childhood. Yet, beneath this facade was a growing sense of anger and resentment, especially towards women. Even in his youth, he struggled with relationships, often feeling rejected and isolated. It was a simmering discontent that would later manifest in the most unimaginable ways. As he grew older, Gary maintained a standard routine. He held jobs that were as unremarkable as his upbringing. He worked as a truck painter, blending into the everyday rhythm of life. Neighbors described him as quiet and helpful. He was the type of man you might see mowing his lawn on a Saturday afternoon, seemingly embodying the ideals of the American dream. But this ordinary exterior masked a chilling reality. Ridgway had a secret life, one that would soon erupt into public consciousness in a terrifying way. Imagine the unsuspecting community of Seattle during the early 1980s. Families were focused on their daily lives, unaware that an evil was lurking just beyond their doorstep. The first bodies began to surface near the Green River, leading to a grim discovery that would shake the foundations of the area. These young women, many of whom were vulnerable, runaways, or involved in sex work, had their lives cut tragically short. The shockwaves of fear rippled through the community, igniting a sense of urgency among law enforcement and residents alike. As investigators sifted through the evidence, confusion reigned. The bodies, left in secluded areas, painted a haunting picture of a killer's methodology. Each discovery came with its own wave of dread. Families were left to grapple with the unimaginable horror that someone among them was capable of such brutality. The media frenzy intensified, and headlines screamed warnings to women. Don't walk alone. Stay vigilant. A shadowy figure was stalking the streets, and the community was desperate for answers. During this time, the police began to realize they were dealing with a pattern. A serial killer was at work. Reports of missing women began to flood in. Each case added to the growing fear that gripped the city. Families were left searching for loved ones, their pleas echoing in the hearts of investigators who had yet to find a single lead. The urgency of the situation was palpable, but the lack of evidence left authorities grasping at straws. Each day brought new frustrations, further entrenching the fear that a monster was operating in plain sight. While the investigation intensified, Gary Ridgway continued to live his ordinary life. He married multiple times, each relationship a testament to his ability to blend into the fabric of society. Those who lived near him would describe him as an unassuming man. He was the neighbor who helped with yard work, who would wave hello. In TRIs, there was nothing remarkably sinister about him. Yet, that was precisely what made him so dangerous. Ridgway's ability to maintain this facade allowed him to evade suspicion, all while committing heinous acts that would haunt the community for decades. The mid-1980s brought an escalation to the investigation. A task force was established to confront the growing menace of the Green River Killer. Hundreds of tips flooded in, leading to countless interviews and dead ends. Investigators faced emotional exhaustion as they fought against time, haunted by the families who attended press briefings, their faces etched with hope and despair. With each passing year, the case grew colder, yet the fear remained fresh in the community's psyche. Ridgway continued to evade capture, slipping through the fingers of law enforcement like sand. Throughout the late 1980s and into the 1990s, while the investigation slowed, the horror did not cease. Ridgway became more careful, more calculated. New disappearances continued to haunt the streets, each one a reminder that the nightmare was far from over. Families held on to hope, never giving up their search, while their loved ones' futures remained shrouded in uncertainty. The emotional toll was heavy, not just for those who lost someone, but for the entire community. Each name represented a life filled with dreams, ambitions, and the promise of tomorrow. As the years rolled on, advances in DNA technology began to reshape the investigation landscape. The breakthrough was monumental. Investigators finally had a lead, a match that pointed toward someone so ordinary, so seemingly unremarkable as Gary Ridgway. The shock of the discovery sent ripples through the police department. How could a man who seemed so normal be capable of such extraordinary evil? When Ridgway was taken in for questioning in 2001, his calm demeanor was chilling. He sat as if he were waiting for a routine appointment. Showing little emotion as the investigators laid out their case. The tension in the room was thick, a palpable mix of disbelief and determination. When he confessed to the murders, it was not a moment of triumph for the detectives. Instead, it was a heart-wrenching realization that the reality was even darker than they had imagined. Ridgway's explanations were cold and devoid of remorse. He spoke of choosing the weakest, of how his victims had trusted him. Each name he recounted struck a chord, echoing in the hearts of the investigators and families left behind. The emotional weight of hearing those names, of realizing the lives and hopes they represented, was almost unbearable. Each confession painted a portrait of lives lost, dreams shattered, and families forever altered. The trial in 2003 was a testament to the pain felt by the community. Courtrooms filled with weeping families, each person carrying the burden of grief and anger. Ridgway, however, seemed almost detached, avoiding the death penalty by confessing to his crimes. His emotions were nearly absent, except for a moment when confronted directly with the impact of his actions. Tears glistened in his eyes, yet they did not convey remorse. They seemed more a reflection of his self-preservation. The aftermath of Ridgway's actions rippled far beyond the courtroom. His case changed America in significant ways. It spurred improvements in missing persons systems, increased awareness for vulnerable women, and advanced forensic technologies. The investigation also fostered a deeper understanding of serial offender behavior, aiding law enforcement in recognizing patterns and preventing future tragedies. In the years that followed, the community began to heal, though the scars remained. Memorials were established to honor the victims, each one a poignant reminder of lives that should have flourished. Families gathered to share stories of the women lost too soon, a testament to their hopes and dreams. These gatherings became spaces for remembrance, for love, and for a commitment to ensure that such horrors would never be forgotten. As we reflect on the story of Gary Ridgway, let us remember the unseen dangers that can lurk behind the most ordinary facades. Each victim represents not merely a statistic, but a life filled with potential. Dreams yet to be fulfilled. This story serves as a somber reminder to remain aware, to foster empathy, and to seek justice for those who can no longer speak for themselves. In closing, let us honor every lost life and remember the shadows that can quietly form in our communities. May we strive for a world where fear doesn't overshadow hope, where compassion reigns over indifference, and where the echoes of the past guide us toward a safer future. The air was thick with tension as the first rays of dawn spilled over the Washington landscape. The Green River, a tranquil waterway, whispered secrets beneath its surface. But beneath the calm surface lay a growing terror that would soon shatter the quiet of the early 1980s. In this picturesque setting, a chilling discovery was about to unfold, awakening a community to the stark reality of a hidden predator lurking in the shadows. It all began in the summer of 1982. Local authorities received a report about a body found near the Green River, and what they unearthed sent shockwaves through the region. Investigators arrived at the scene, their hearts racing as they approached the grim discovery. The victim was a young woman, her life cut short far too soon. The feeling of confusion hung heavy in the air. Who was she? How did she end up here? And more importantly, who had taken her life? As the days turned into weeks, the grim reality became undeniable. More bodies surfaced, leading investigators to confront a horrifying pattern. Each victim, it seemed, was connected by their vulnerability. Many were women living on the fringes of society, often struggling with addiction or involved in sex work. The community's shock morphed into a palpable fear. Families began to worry, fearing for their daughters, sisters, and friends. The once peaceful neighborhoods that dotted the area now felt like a trap, concealing a predator who had turned their world upside down. With each discovery, local media outlets ramped up their coverage, amplifying the growing panic. Headlines screamed warnings, urging women to stay indoors. "Don't walk alone," they cautioned, igniting a movement of vigilance among residents. People began to question their safety. Could anyone truly be trusted? The fear was contagious, spreading beyond the immediate vicinity of the river, echoing in homes and workplaces across the region. As the investigation unfolded, the emotional toll on families was catastrophic. Desperate mothers held vigils, clinging to hope, while fathers scoured the streets, searching for any sign of their missing daughters. Some families were left with nothing but unanswered questions. Who would protect their loved ones when the danger was so elusive? The sense of helplessness settled like a dark cloud over the community. In the midst of this turmoil, the police struggled to piece together the puzzle. Officers worked tirelessly, sifting through evidence, conducting interviews, and following leads. But with each passing day, frustration mounted. Tips poured in, but few led to anything concrete. The notion that a serial killer was at work felt surreal, a nightmarish thought that few were willing to entertain. Yet, the truth was staring them in the face, cloaked in shadows. All the while, Gary Ridgway, a man who would soon become infamous, lived a life that seemed ordinary on the surface. He worked at a truck painting company, a job that required little more than steady hands and a methodical mind. To his neighbors, he was just another face in the crowd, polite and unassuming. Little did they know, beneath this facade lay a chilling duality. Ridgway blended seamlessly into his community, maintaining a low profile and a veneer of normalcy. His personal life mirrored this dichotomy. He was married multiple times, and those closest to him had no inkling of the dark impulses that lurked beneath his calm exterior. Friends described him as helpful and neighborly, completely unaware that he harbored a sinister side that thrived in secrecy. As the investigation intensified, a task force was created to track down the elusive Green River killer. Hundreds of tips flooded in, and officers pored over mountains of evidence. The emotional toll on the investigators was profound. They attended press briefings alongside grieving families, each meeting heavy with the weight of despair. Hope flickered like a candle in the wind, vulnerable to being extinguished at any moment. Years passed with no clear answers, but the nightmare didn't end. Ridgway became more cautious, slipping deeper into the shadows while the community remained in suspense. New disappearances continued to haunt the area, each one a reminder of the terror that gripped the region. Families never lost hope, clinging to the belief that their loved ones could still be found. They organized searches, plastered flyers on telephone poles, and shared stories of their missing daughters in the hopes that someone might have seen them. The late 1980s into the 1990s saw a lull in the public's focus on the killer, but the pain for families remained raw. With every passing year, the absence of answers was a heavy burden to bear. The community's sense of safety was shattered, replaced by a pervasive dread that the killer was still out there, undeterred and unrepentant. Then, in 2001, a breakthrough changed everything. Advances in DNA technology offered investigators a glimmer of hope. The chilling realization that a killer could be hiding in plain sight sent shockwaves through the police department. When they finally connected the evidence to Gary Ridgway, disbelief swept through the ranks. How could someone so ordinary be capable of such evil? The day of Ridgway's arrest marked a pivotal moment for the community. Relief mingled with horror. The man who had lived among them, who had blended into their lives, was unmasked as one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. Investigators approached him with a mixture of dread and determination, hoping to unravel the web of darkness he had spun. As Ridgway confessed to killing dozens of women, his explanations chilled those who listened. He spoke of his victims with an unsettling detachment, recalling how he had preyed on the most vulnerable. "I chose the weakest," he said, as if discussing mundane chores rather than the tragic loss of life. The weight of each name he mentioned hung heavy in the air, a haunting reminder of the lives extinguished too soon. The trial that followed thrust the community back into the spotlight, with families gathering in the courtroom, their hearts heavy with grief. As Ridgway faced the consequences of his actions, the emotional impact reverberated through the room. He avoided the death penalty by confessing, a decision that sparked outrage and sadness among the victims' loved ones. When confronted with the pain he had caused, he showed little emotion, save for a fleeting moment of tears-on unsettling response to the devastation he had wrought. Sentenced to life in prison without parole, Ridgway would never again walk among the community he had terrorized. In the aftermath, the case left an indelible mark on America. It spurred changes in how authorities handled missing persons and increased awareness around the vulnerabilities of women. The tragedy of the lost lives became a catalyst for deeper understanding and discussions about safety in society. As the community began to heal, they honored the memories of the victims. Each lost life, a reminder of the hope, dreams, and futures that were stolen. It was a somber reflection on the unseen dangers lurking in the shadows. A call to empathy and awareness amidst the chaos. The whispers of the Green River would forever echo through the forest, a chilling reminder of the lives that were lost, urging society to remain vigilant. In the end, the haunting tale of Gary Ridgway serves as a stark reminder of the darkness that can exist in ordinary places. It challenges us to reflect on the fragility of life and the importance of protecting those who are vulnerable. As the shadows fade, may we carry the stories of those who were lost, ensuring their memories live on, forever urging us toward justice and understanding. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the streets of Seattle, an unsettling reality began to take shape. The early 1980s were marked by a growing fear, one that crept into the lives of families and friends. Women were disappearing, one after another, their absence a haunting echo in the quiet neighborhoods. Each missing person report sent shockwaves through the community, a grim signal that something sinister was unfolding in the shadows. In the bustling city, the names of the lost became whispered prayers. Young women, often marginalized, were vanishing without a trace. Families, desperate for answers, plastered missing person flyers on telephone poles and community boards, their hope flickering like a candle in the wind. Each flyer represented a life, interrupted a daughter, a sister, a friend, each one, a story that risked fading into silence. As the months rolled on, the police began to notice a chilling pattern. The reports of missing women were no longer isolated incidents, but a horrific trend. The realization spread among investigators like wildfire. They were likely facing a serial killer. The sense of urgency escalated, with detectives working late into the night, piecing together fragments of evidence that seemed to lead nowhere. Each lead that fizzled out felt like another blow to their already fragile morale. The media, ever hungry for a story, began to amplify the panic. Headlines screamed warnings to women, urging them to stay vigilant, to avoid walking alone at night. News anchors detailed the grim discoveries near the Green River, where bodies were surfacing like dark secrets from the depths. The community was gripped by fear. Mothers warned their daughters. Friends clung to each other a little tighter. The atmosphere was thick with unease, as if the very air carried the weight of despair. Despite the chaos, the investigation struggled to make headway. Tips flooded in, each one a glimmer of hope, but most led to dead ends. Frustration mounted as detectives realized they were racing against an unseen predator. Families attended press briefings, their hearts heavy with unspoken grief, hoping for a miracle. They wanted answers, closure, and, above all, to know that their loved ones were safe. Meanwhile, life went on for Gary Ridgway. To those around him, he was just another face, and the crowd unremarkable, even mundane. He worked at a truck painting company, earning a living and blending into the fabric of everyday life. Neighbors described him as helpful and quiet, completely unaware of the darkness lurking beneath his calm exterior. Ridgway wore his mask well, living a double life that shielded his monstrous tendencies from the gaze of the world. As the mid-1980s approached, the task force dedicated to the Green River Killer intensified its efforts. Hundreds of interviews were conducted, countless tips evaluated, but the killer remained elusive. Investigators felt the emotional toll of the case weighing heavily on them. Each day spent chasing shadows was another day. The families waited in anguish, their loved ones still missing. The pressure mounted from all sides, and the frustration of not having a suspect became palpable. In this desperate search, Ridgway continued his heinous acts, becoming more careful and methodical. The community remained on edge, but the fear slowly morphed into a resigned acceptance that the killer was still out there. New disappearances haunted the streets, and the names of the lost echoed in the hearts of those left behind. Families refused to give up, holding vigils and searching tirelessly for their missing daughters and sisters. Each life lost was a reminder of dreams unfulfilled and futures stolen. As time wore on, the case seemed to lose momentum. Investigators faced years of silence, but the killer's thirst for violence hadn't waned. It was a chilling realization that the community's fears were not unfounded, but the horror had slipped into a lull, making it all the more dangerous. With each passing year, the families held on to hope, their determination unwavering. Then came a breakthrough. Advances in DNA technology opened new doors, revealing connections that had previously gone unnoticed. The moment investigators matched Ridgway's DNA to evidence collected at the crime scenes was a turning point. The shock of discovering that the man responsible for so much pain was living an ordinary life sent ripples through the department. How could someone so seemingly normal hide such darkness? When Ridgway was finally apprehended in 2001, the tension in the air was almost palpable. During interrogation, he remained disturbingly calm, recounting his actions with chilling detachment. The investigators felt the weight of each word, an emotional burden that would haunt them long after the case concluded. Listening to him name each victim felt like a dagger, a reminder of lives that deserved so much more. The trial that followed was a devastating affair, filled with emotional impact statements from the families of Ridgway's victims. The courtroom was heavy with grief, each testimony a piercing reminder of the losses endured. Ridgway, however, displayed little emotion, only breaking down when confronted with the truth of his actions. His eventual life sentence without parole offered a semblance of justice, but the scars left on the community were indelible. The aftermath of the Green River killer case reshaped America's approach to missing persons. Awareness for vulnerable women grew, and better systems were put in place to handle such cases. Society began to understand the complexities of serial offenders and the importance of community vigilance. Memorials were established to honor the victims, their dreams and potential forever etched in the hearts of those left behind. As we reflect on this dark chapter, it serves as a sobering reminder of the dangers that can lurk in the most unexpected places. The lives lost were not mere statistics. They were individuals with hopes, dreams, and families who loved them. In honoring their memory, we acknowledge the importance of empathy, justice, and the relentless pursuit of truth. The shadows may linger, but so does the resolve to ensure that such a tragedy never unfolds again. Gary Ridgway led a life that was deceptively ordinary, a facade that allowed him to navigate through the world with an unsettling ease. By day, he was just another worker at a local truck painting company, meticulously applying coats of color to the vehicles that would soon hit the open roads. To his co-workers, he was simply Gary, a hard worker, someone who could be counted on to help out when needed. The rhythmic sound of spray paint cans became a backdrop to his daily routine, a stark contrast to the chaos lurking beneath his surface. He blended seamlessly into his community in Washington. Neighbors described him as quiet and helpful, a man who would lend a hand with household projects or offer a friendly wave as they passed on the street. They had no idea that, behind that mask of normalcy, lay a chilling darkness. The very essence of his ordinary life was a cover for his true self, one that harbored a sinister secret. As he went about his daily tasks, life appeared to be just like everyone else's. Ridgway had married and divorced multiple times, each relationship offering a glimpse into the duality of his existence. His first marriage to his high school sweetheart ended quietly, but not without its share of complications. She spoke of a man who was often distant, someone who struggled with intimacy and connection. Yet, in the eyes of others, he was just Gary the nice guy next door. In his second marriage, things were not much different. He continued to project an image of normalcy, yet those close to him sensed a growing void. Friends noticed how he often retreated into himself, a shadow cast over his demeanor. Conversations would often shift uneasily whenever the topic drifted towards emotions or personal struggles. His wives, unaware of the true extent of his detachment, tried to reach out, but they found themselves met with walls of silence. These marriages hinted at a hidden darkness that was incongruent with the life he presented. It was almost as if Ridgway was crafting a life that could withstand scrutiny, one that masked his true nature. While he engaged in mundane conversations about work and neighborhood events, his mind was occupied with thoughts far more sinister, and in the quiet moments before sleep, the darkness would seep in, fueling his compulsions and desires. The chilling reality is that Ridgway's ordinary life allowed him to evade suspicion for years. While the community grappled with the growing number of missing women, Gary Ridgway was just another face in the crowd. He was the man who seemed to have it all together, a stark contrast to the panic emerging around him. As families searched for their loved ones, the fear and uncertainty only deepened. But to Ridgway, these women were mere prey. While he navigated his workday and neighborhood interactions, the police were tightening their grip on the investigation. The task force was growing desperate, chasing down leads that seemed to vanish into thin air. With each passing day, the fear and anxiety of the community escalated, yet Ridgway remained untouched by it all. He was a ghost amidst the turmoil, skillfully evading detection while continuing to live his double life. The chilling irony of Gary Ridgway's story is that he thrived in a world that seemed to have no space for him. He thrived in the shadows, where he could maintain his facade while committing horrific acts that would haunt the community for decades. His ability to blend in, to appear like any other man, made him all the more dangerous. As the investigation unfolded, the police were piecing together fragments of a puzzle, only to find that Ridgway was an unexpected piece. One that, didn't he, fit the image they had constructed. The ordinary life he led was a stark reminder of how evil can hide in plain sight, camouflaged by a veneer of normalcy. With each new detail that emerged, the tension thickened, and the community's fear morphed into a palpable weight. The question lingered in the air. How could someone so seemingly ordinary harbor such darkness? And as they pondered this unsettling truth, Ridgway continued to live among them, his true self concealed beneath the layers of his everyday life. The hourglass of time was slipping through their fingers, and the clock was ticking. As the search for answers intensified, the impact of Ridgway's actions became a haunting reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist all around us. The ordinary life he led would, in time, reveal itself to be the most extraordinary deception of all. What would it take for the shadows to be illuminated? What secrets still lay buried, waiting to be uncovered?